because so much of this hate rhetoric and xenophobia is coming from our country's leadership, I feel like it's not just isolated to this virus. I feel like in the last few years, hate mongering, hate rhetoric, hate speech has become accepted almost in this country. So in your opinion, has the situation gotten worse over several years? Because I don't feel like it's just this.
So in my opinion, and I speak for myself as a sole individual, in my opinion, I've noticed that this administration has done a really good job at making the us against them thing a big thing. First, it was with the refugees, and then with our Latinx community and our Native American First Nation community, and now we see it in the Asian American community. It's just, they do a really good job um, building that wall that they speak of. Yeah, has it gotten worse? Because this is a global pandemic, it's affecting everyone. I'm hesitant to say it's worse than any other ethnic group, how they've been treated, but for me, as an Asian man walking down the street, I am more fearful. I am more cautious, where do I go? And I'm more cautious to even breathe heavily in public. I'm more cautious where I cough in public. I sometimes, have to run to the restroom if I got something caught in my throat. As a singer, I'm a little more cautious as to how I present myself. And as a queer man, I'm obviously in the South, I'm a little more cautious how I present myself. But yeah, it's a little more difficult for Asian Americans and for myself.
As you've been walking around your area of town, are people giving you kind of the side eye, or people treating you strangely or differently than they would have before?
Being a queer man in the South, you have to be very vigilant. That's just life. So I notice people doing things, but being an Asian American male in this environment, in the COVID-19 world, I have noticed people looking at me if I cough, or if I hand sanitize a bit too much, or if I am sick, or if I do have a cough, I can't risk wearing a mask in public anymore, because that will show that will lead people to think a certain way. Like even if I just have an allergic cough to something, I'm cautious to wear a mask in public, just to.
Pollen season, it's
It
allergy.
is pollen season. I just saw a giant cloud of yellow brush by me, and I'm like, oh my god, I have to cough, but I try not to. I try to stifle my cough, and as a singer, that's even worse.
The one article I was reading said that by vilifying China, we're perpetuating this narrative of Western supremacy. Do you feel that's true? And is this part of a bigger issue?
Of course, it's the world is very Western centric. It's very Eurocentric. When you refer to other areas in the world, you call it Eastern or Western or blah, blah, blah. It's always in reference to centralized Europe, where this idea all came from. So yeah, it's not helping. Yeah, it's not helping.
Absolutely not. And one thing that interests me from an arts journalist perspective is this idea of coded language, because there's certain language, when we see written on Trump's notes, Chinese virus, that there's nothing coded about it. That is blatant. It furthers discrimination, scapegoating, xenophobia. It's awful.
Yes.
But I also think in our everyday, especially in the entertainment industry, there's so much coded language that is hurtful and harmful. So can you talk about some of that coded language that people might think is funny, or maybe they even think it's innocent, that is actually hurtful and harmful to the Asian community?
Yeah, the coded language comes from stereotypes and comes from people thinking it's because it's funny, it's okay. And as the I don't think I'm a pushover, but as the type of person I am, I usually go ha ha ha, okay. But as I've gotten older, I've gotten the personal strength to say out loud, hey, that was a bit insensitive, or let me tell you where the Fu Manchu came from and why you should not call it a Fu Manchu, or certain phrases and words like that. It can no longer be locker room talk. It no, that's now no longer acceptable, and it's my job as someone who is affected by that to educate the public about it.
And even the jokes and memes, which people kind of write off just as comedy and funny, still is not funny.
It's not, and I love to laugh. I love watching comedies, and I love but when you're laughing at the expense of another person, is that comedy? Is that art? Is that helping the world in any way? Because I think art should help the world. Art should make the world a better place. But when you're using this and that to push against each other, it's not no longer art. It's just hate.
And we're having a super serious conversation, but I have to say, I saw you and SHREK at Cape Fear Regional Theater, and you brought so much joy, so much happiness to that role. I saw you understudy the role of Donkey, and you really are a joyful, happy, positive person, even though we're having this very serious conversation. So I think most people who know you probably know that, but I think there's a line though where you have to say it's just not funny. It's hurtful. It's
And we need to evolve in there. So in going back to SHREK, in SHREK, there are some, when it was conceived back in the 2000s, there are some phrases in there that are no longer kosher for our day and age. And the publishers recognize that, and they've written in better lyrics. So we, as a people, need to adapt, need to change, and need to realize that what got by 10 years ago even, ain't gonna fly these days. And it's up to, it's up to us creative types to recognize that and teach the public.
I want to get into the entertainment industry and specifically about the theater, because most of the people who follow our Do You on Stage are theater people, theater lovers, and I want to get into that in a second. But before I do, former presidential candidate Andrew Yang and the Anti-Defamation League's Jonathan Greenblatt wrote an opinion piece in USA Today encouraging people to avoid COVID-19 racism and scapegoating. There's a trending hashtag that you included in your notice of this event. Hashtag racism is a virus. And when you click on that hashtag, you can see 300 posts regarding this topic. What can the public do to support our Asian friends during this pandemic, particularly as people get more and more frightened and anxious about this? Because I think the more anxious and frightened you get, you're looking for a scapegoat. So what can we do to support our Asian friends?
I think education is one of the biggest things we can do for ourselves. Educating ourselves and learning the difference between knowledge and hate. That's the first thing. Educate yourself. The next thing is to realize or to go out into your mom and pop Asian stores and support them this current time. Because the other day I went to my local Vietnamese place and they've only had 10 orders that day, and it was like dinner time. Asian businesses are suffering. My mother, who owns a nail salon up in Connecticut, her business is suffering. So we're suffering, and we would love for your support. So the best way is just to go out there and give your money to these Asian businesses, and educate yourself and know that the terms like Chinese viruses aren't a thing. And also stand by your Asian looking peers when they are attacked. Don't turn the other cheek or don't look away. That's the time where you can help the most, is if you show solidarity and if you are there to protect them. I've been reading articles about how Asian people are being attacked, and the people around them they're not stopping the attackers, which blows my mind. When I see someone who's being attacked, my first instinct is to dive in there or just make it stop. But this climate of fear and whatever make people not want to help other people. So if you see violence, if you see people like me being hurt because of fear, I would appreciate it if you stood in, or if you stood by my side and help me.
Absolutely. And I think people are afraid. And I think many years ago, I participated in a class, a workshop hosted by the YMCA called Study Circles. And it was a courageous conversation about race. And it was really the first time in my adult life that I ever had a courageous conversation about race. But what I realized in that class is it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to open up the conversation if your heart's in the right place. Obviously, hate speech is not okay, but if your heart's in the right place, it's okay to ask questions. And so I think we need to give each other permission to communicate openly and honestly, not in a hateful way, but in a curious way, so that we can learn about each other and be empathetic towards each other.
Yes, I 100% agree. That's part of the education process that we need to adopt. We can't pretend to know everything. I don't know everything. And when I love asking questions. So I agree. Education is the best bet.
So let's talk about performance in the theater industry for a second, because you are, you got your jazz hands, you're singing. You are incredibly talented. I don't even know how anybody can be a swing on stage and just jump into a role, especially a principal role like Donkey and SHREK, at last minute notice. But according to Asian American Performers Action Coalition, representation on New York stages, and the numbers I have are from 2015, 2016, those numbers went up for every minority group except Asian Americans. And Asians accounted for 4% of all roles. It was better in musicals than plays, but the percentages are really low. So why do you think the numbers are going down? And in your career, have there been specific instances where you've been passed over for a role just because of your race?
Yeah, so first off, my family never wanted me to become a performer. Not saying they didn't support me, but their dream for me was not to be a performer. They wanted me to be a doctor or, something of the sort that made a bit more money or had, a stable career, but here I am. I think that's the genesis of why you don't see so many Asian performers on Broadway or in TV right now, is because we're raised up not to think of ourselves as performers. Mm-hmm. And that leads me to the next section, which is we don't see ourselves on stage or on TV. So why should I aspire to be an actor when I don't see actors who look like me on stage? I remember the first time I saw someone of my skin color on stage, and I said, oh my God, they have a love story. They are allowed to fall in love and they can be the hero. And that inspired me. That inspired me to say, hey, I'm going to give this a shot, and I'm pretty damn good at it. So that's reason number one. Why the percentage of Asian Americans in the entertainment business on Broadway, why it hasn't grown. My theory, when I go look at a casting notice, the breakdowns are usually the breakdowns usually tell you what ethnicity they're looking for. And I do this thing, it's my favorite thing, where I literally don't look at the first 5 characters. I scroll down to about mid-page or to the bottom, because that's where they're looking for the Asian characters. Most of the time, my castings are at the bottom, and it's usually supporting or, whatever. And sometimes you don't want to play a supporting character. Sometimes you don't want to put in that much work to say 3 lines. So that might deter people from going into this business. I have seen a change in our business with new content being created by Asian American playwrights that allows us to play, love interests and ingenues and just the star of our own story, which is fantastic. So I would look to those numbers to rise a bit more after we recover from this global pandemic.
Crazy. I had a conversation, we did a podcast about Latinx theater. And one of the things that Patrick Torres brought up, who is the artistic director at Raleigh Little Theater, is that he's trying to get away from color blind casting and move it. He said there's a trend towards color conscious casting. So is that where you see the trend going? And for people who don't know what we're talking about, what is the difference between, is there a difference between colorblind, color conscious casting?
Oh yeah, I am passionate about this subject. So in my definition of colorblind casting is that literally you don't see the color. You look at the talent, you look at what's on the paper, you don't look at the performer, which is fine if you're working a 9 to 5 in an office, whatever. But this is a visual entertainment business. So obviously you have to see the performer, which is where color consciousness comes in. You have to be, a lot of the time when you're looking at talent, that talent has been cultivated and they've had the resources to cultivate that talent via voice lessons, dance lessons. They've had the money to support their talent. A lot of times people of color like myself, we don't have the financial abilities to support that. So once again, so moving past that, color consciousness is now saying that I see that this has traditionally been played by a white male. I'm going to make the conscious choice of putting a minority person in this role. That's color consciousness, and that's so important to the whole process. So that's my idea. It's everything to me. It's the reason why I can play certain roles that have been traditionally been white males.
What's interesting to me is I've seen some very purposeful color conscious casting. And what I've loved about it is it's changed the narrative of the play in
Yes.
a very positive way. Bright Star over at North Carolina State University Theater, they had a very diverse cast. They made some really bold color conscious casting decisions in that show. And what was beautiful about it is I thought it actually made the play better. It made the musical better.
So many times you can enhance the show by just reinventing our idea of what the norm is, what the typical is. And that's the beauty. A local theater here, they were doing a production of King and they hired. It was very controversial, but in my brain, I thought they should the role of who's the leading lady, Kelly
And,
O'Hara, and
Anna.
they should have hired a black lady and an African American actress to play Anna, and how riveting and how inspiring that would have been. And so yes, we agree how changing one's skin color, the actor's skin color, can totally change the story.
Yeah, David Henry Wang is one of my favorite playwrights. And I saw half, unfortunately, I got sick at intermission, but I saw half of Soft Power last
Uh,
year at the Public. And it was so wonderful to see such a strong Asian cast telling kind of an Asian story, and it was really funny. And I hope it finds its way to Broadway. I really do, because it's a really good piece.
We have stories to tell, and we have very interesting human stories to tell. And like I said, when I was a little Asian boy, the first time I saw someone who looked like me fall in love on stage, and it changes your perception of the world, and it gives you hope and inspiration. People say, what's the big deal? Love is love, blah, da, da, da. Yes, love is love, but when you see someone who looked like you be able to fall in love just like everyone else, that's a different thing.
And I think that's why representation on stage, on screen, in movies is so important. And I kind of want to ask you, we have shows on television now that are centered around Asian American families. We have movies like Crazy Rich Asians on the big screen, which did really well. Is representation in the entertainment industry overall getting better with big titles like that?
I believe so. I've seen my work or my opportunities in the film industry increase because of the popularity of Crazy Rich Asians. So within the past, I would say 4 or 5 years, we've seen more writers writing specifically for Asian characters with bigger roles. You know, they're not just like the sidekick, and they're not just like the witty banter, but they're characters of substance. So within the past 4 or 5 years, I've seen an increase in our people on the screen and on stage.
And people have a lot of time on their hands right now, I think. Are there Asian artists or plays written by people of color that folks should have on their reading lists or their playlists as we're all self-isolating and social distancing?
Yes, I am passionate about telling people about Asian art. So the first one is the Joy Luck Club. I brought books, I brought examples.
Oh my goodness, we have visuals. The Joy Luck Club.
Yep, The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. Fantastic, fantastic book. And the next one obviously is Crazy Rich Asians, right?
Yep.
On Netflix, there are a multitude of Asian dubbed and subbed shows. I've been recently in love with a show called The Untamed. It's a Chinese show, but it has subtitles, and it's about queer Asian love, which you never see, which, you know, hits a strong chord within me. Playwrights, you should look for a play called Viet Gone by Kui Nguyen. That's a fantastic one. And Lauren Yee, who is an up-and-coming playwright who makes fantastic work.
Yes. Yes. Please go check out Lauren Yee's work, because she's fantastic. I know our American Theater Critics Association awarded her a big prize recently for being an emerging playwright or a great American playwright. They're always looking for next great American playwright, and she was one of them that they picked for their award.
She fits the bill. She writes very intelligent, true, real stories.
You pointed to 2 books that were made into movies, and I loved Crazy Rich Asians, but I am not a reader. I'm sorry, guys, don't judge. I'm just not a reader. But would you suggest people read the book over watching the movies? Is there any kind of problem with the movies and the way Asians are portrayed in those movies?
When Asians direct other Asians in a movie, 90% of the time, the movie's gonna be pretty solid and not like racist. So whether you should read the book before you watch the movie, I mean, I'm not a big read the book before the movie type of person. I'm usually the watch the movie, which makes me read the book type of person. So, and you know, whatever floats your boat, man. Whatever does it for you. But as long as you're supporting Asian art, I'm not gonna be mad.
Well, and even Parasite, I mean, I feel
Oh my
like,
God, yes. Sorry, I forgot about Parasite, which I shouldn't.
okay, so Parasite won Best Picture, Best Foreign Film. What does that do for the industry? Do you think we're going to see more foreign films, see more films like that because it did so well?
Yes, I believe the quote was from the director, if you can get past that 1 inch difference, that 1 inch being the subtitles on the screen, a whole world will open up to you. I think that was by the director of Parasite, and it's so true. I hope with Parasite winning the Oscar, it will inspire people who don't speak another language to go watch foreign films, Asian foreign films, because we do pretty kick-ass stuff.
I'm going to unmute everyone's microphones. I think you can unmute yourself too. Oh, hello. Everyone's talking. Does anybody have any questions or comments you want to add to the conversation?
Right. We're always doing something. This is time to reflect and time to pray for a better world.
Yes, indeed. Good notes be taken. Will you sing for us, Patty LaFontaine?
I will. No, Scotty wanted me to sing. I got two for you. But Scotty wanted in 100 years from today, and I listened to the lyrics about this is like.
She was Ava Perón in Evita. She was Fantine in Les Mis. She was Rose in Gypsy.
I think so.
That's how I knew it.
Guys, I think everybody's talking at once, and I don't know about you, Thao. I can't hear any.
I heard something about Ava Perón and Gypsy and Patty, and those are all things I love, but
we can't really hear what you guys are actually saying. So I guess, and I don't know the technology. My heart's in the right place, but technologically, I am not that savvy. So I'll just, whoever made the Ava Perón comment, can you please say your comment again so we can hear you? Who was talking about Ava Perón? Anybody? I don't know who was talking about Ava Perón. Okay, so does somebody else have something you want to add to the conversation? I heard some people saying that this is a time for awareness or something like that. So whoever was saying that, do you want to jump in? I'm not sure if somebody's jumping in or if I just can't hear you guys. I don't. All right. Well, Thao, what I'm going to ask you is, because I'm having trouble hearing other people. John, do you have something you want to add to the conversation? Oh, no. He turned his microphone off. Okay.
fine. So are there any more questions you can ask me as opposed to everyone else?
I'm going to ask you, we've covered so much ground, I feel like, in this conversation, and we could probably stay on, we could probably do like 2 or 3 of these, and there's so much ground to cover when it comes to this topic. But if there's one takeaway that you want people to take away from this conversation, from this Zoom meeting, what would it be? What is the takeaway from this?
I think the biggest takeaway is that in this time of ever-changing policies and ever-changing thoughts and ever-changing, moments, we need to stay united. It's no longer it's no longer about us against them, because this pandemic is affecting everyone. We need to look for each other for answers, not build walls, but build community and unity. So my biggest takeaway is to love each other, stand by, and fight against hatred and xenophobia. That's my biggest lesson here. And educate yourself. Education, education, education.
So Melissa, who worked with you over at Cape Fear, she's asked a question, and this might be better, guys, if you do have specific questions, send them to me via chat, the group chat, and then I can ask them. What is your dream role? I'd be curious to hear that too. What is your dream role?
My word, it changes every day based on what comes up on my Spotify.
Okay.
The other day, someone asked me, I was like, I would love to play Alphaba, but here we are.
But why not?
Why not?
They have the first trans actress right now on Broadway.
Yeah,
Not in the role of Elphaba, but in Wicked. So
I think the Broadway world is becoming very aware that there are many types of performers out there, and we can use all of these lovely talents, and we should support our trans actors and our LGBTQIA actors in any way possible, and our minority actors in any way possible. So I'm thrilled that there are trans actors on Broadway, and I'm glad they're working.
thank you, Adam. Adam knows what I'm talking about because I didn't know the actress's name. Alexandra Billings is playing Madame Morrible on Broadway.
Yes.
In Wicked. So thank you for that, Adam. I saw Peppermint in Head Over.
Peppermint.
Oh my gosh.
She was in Head Over Heels.
Head Over Heels. She was the first trans actor to originate a Broadway role.
Yes,
So
and she was fabulous.
it was amazing. Anybody else have any questions? I'm kind of looking at the chat before we go, but thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Thao, for all of your candor and honesty and opening up about this really important subject. Hopefully this virus will make us more empathetic to each other and connect more and communicate more. For all of you on here tomorrow at 7 p.m., I'm doing another Zoom. By the end of the week, I will be an expert at Zoom, so that's the good news. But tomorrow at 7, Natasha Jackson, who is a fantastic stage manager, director, theater artist, but she's also a social worker, trained social worker. She's going to be talking to us about grief, loss, and coping. So if you want to come back here at 7 p.m. tomorrow, we're having another chat, and RDU on Stage is hosting virtual things for the rest of the week. Some are serious, some are fun. We're having a chat about 6 on Thursday night, so I'm excited about that. We're having a chat with somebody from the national tour of Waitress, Megan Chipper, who was in the Cape Fear Regional Theater production of Memphis. She's from North Carolina, and she's home now after the tour closed. So visit our Facebook page, and you can see the entire schedule. Thank you, Thao, for everything. Stay safe and healthy. Stay safe and healthy, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.